Justice on air. He doesn't have a camera,
Okay.
but he will be able to talk. Welcome,
Sure.
Justice. How's it
Can you
going,
hear
Hey,
me
buddy?
what's
okay?
going on, Justice?
How's it going? Good to be with you guys.
Glad you
Awesome.
could make it.
Yeah. Well, Justice, thanks for coming on to the show. I mean, I know Seth has been trying to secure you for a while, from what he tells me, and we're glad that you had some moment to chat with us tonight. I'm going to let you do a little intro so the
We
people
brought
get
him on
to.
just after we finished the drug legalization part. Damn,
Yeah.
you missed out, buddy.
Yeah.
He
Well,
lives in
what's a quick?
Oregon where they
Yeah,
have it all.
I was
Fucking.
enjoying the legalization talk. That's always great to hear.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, my name's Justice. I'm on Twitter as Justice. I
Yeah, guys, follow
am
Justice.
not
I
working in
am.
politics currently, but I always enjoy talking about politics and social issues.
What is your political stance, Justice? How would you just self-describe your political philosophy?
I would say I'm a left-wing market anarchist, specifically becoming a lot more interested in agorism.
Oh, agorism. Interesting. I
Yeah, explain
didn't
that a
mean to
little bit.
cap you, but
Yeah, so agorism is a newer libertarian theory developed by someone named Samuel Edward Konkin III. Really interesting guy. Basically advocated anarchism through specifically libertarian means, so meaning no involvement with politics or trying to work it within the state, just specifically trying to build underground economies, mutual aid societies, and things outside the states to eventually be able to replace the state and make it obsolete.
and
So, who will govern? Who will govern who in that system?
I mean, the goal is for no one to govern anyone.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I
not
always
totally sure how to answer that.
Do you have an example of like society that's moving towards that direction, or is this just an idea that um, that's based on theory?
I mean, you could say it's based on theory in a lot of ways, but in
Uh,
many ways, America is also moving towards that direction. Parts of America, anyway. We're
yeah.
seeing an increase in networks and technologies outside the state and things that are even more importantly outside of the reach of the state, meaning
Yeah.
they can't really be regulated or extinguished or conquered by any government. So I'm thinking of things like cryptocurrency and blockchain
Yep.
technology that can work outside of central banking in theory. We might not be at that point yet. Things like 3D printed guns, making gun control policy obsolete rather than trying to vote on it. And even just on a more local scale, things like what Carl Hess talks about, just building community technology, community aid networks, just things that make your life not revolve around the government or be too dependent on or restricted by any government policy.
I have a question.
Yes,
So you would consider yourself an anti-capitalist, right?
I would consider myself an anti-capitalist.
How would
Um,
you prevent the capitalism from just becoming an anarcho-capitalist society?
well, one thing that I would say differentiates me from anarcho-capitalists is I don't believe that basically things would go the way they want to. We wouldn't see the same kind of centralized corporations and hierarchical firms that exist in the state capitalist economy that we have now.
Why do you say that? Can't
Um,
corporations, aren't they already in like controlling everything? So like, wouldn't we need to get to a certain place where there is some sort of equal opportunity or competition before you could abolish the state? Because it's already in a situation where we need the state from preventing these giant corporations from controlling more. That's what I'm curious.
Well, I think in some ways that's a misdiagnosis of the problem. If you think about what corporations are, they aren't simply just like voluntary associations of people. They're literally creations of the state, and they're granted limited liability, given so many regulatory advantages through um, captured regulations, and just the world that we see, the amount of corporate power that exists in the world today is it's not prevented by the state, it's enabled by the state. And for
I agree.
Mhm.
But like, do you think that just reducing the special privileges would just cause these corporations that are already in positions of power to just shrink, or how would it
um, more
other
like
than
they wouldn't have the same positions of power that they have now. Like think of something like big pharma companies. They're
Mhm.
only given the power that they have and the ability to charge as much as they do for drugs. That power is not something they form organically. Like in a
Yeah.
legitimate free market, they wouldn't be able to have that much power. They're granted that primarily by the regulations of the FDA, privileging bigger corporations and more centralized expressions of power. Um, and the other thing would be intellectual property rights, like the fact that no one else is able to produce drugs that are patented by a certain company. We can't have more accessible EpiPens because the company that has a monopoly on it, EpiPens through intellectual property, decided to just jack up the prices. If you're in that situation, that's something
Mhm.
of like that's a corporate abuse of power that is specifically enabled by the state. Um, I think if we abolish state power, we abolish all of the other privileges that come with it.
I definitely agree on the intellectual property point. And I do think drug prices, certain drugs would be pretty regulated by the market. But like, what about life-saving drugs and stuff that people don't have a lot of say in, like having to buy it? Doesn't that already give? I guess you could create more companies that would compete and provide the lower prices, but like,
Yeah, I mean,
but maybe
that's the
more for like
idea.
a specific hospital. If you live in Montana and you have no choice but to go to some private hospital, what's going to prevent them from you going in and you going out, and then you have a I mean, it's kind of already happening in America, but like a substantially unpayable medical bill that you have no choice to because otherwise you would have died and you had no choice but to go to the hospital. What's gonna regulate these the commodification of healthcare?
Well, I don't know if anything really can regulate the commodification of healthcare. It is a good and a service.
I mean, the state could definitely regulate it,
The
but you
state
mean
does regulate it,
yeah,
but like the commodification of healthcare, I would say is not something you can exactly get rid of. Um, like if you think of authoritarian Marxists who want to just get rid of all commodities, the only way for them to do that is to plan the entire economy from the top down, and we've seen that that doesn't really work, and that
yeah.
counter economics formed in the Soviet Union as a way for people to survive under state socialism. Um, so the idea is not that a company in a remote location will decide to just charge astronomically more than everywhere else. I don't think that would be one a very sustainable business strategy for anyone. Um, and also, I don't see why they would have incentive to have just a wildly different price than every other hospital. I
I
think
mean,
that's,
it,
I think the more
if you
competition
put
there
somebody in
is,
a
the more
position, yeah, no, go
downward
ahead.
pressure on prices. Sorry, if you put somebody in a position of what?
What was that?
Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, no, I already forgot what I was gonna say. It's okay.
Okay, you're saying if you put somebody in a position, then something.
If they're in a position that they have to pay regardless. I mean, we've seen corporations, we've seen private industry not really care too much about like. I mean, it already exists in private healthcare. Like there's no reason for them to charge the prices they do, but they still do because it's still a market economy and they want to drive up profits. And if they already give you healthcare, they're not like preventing or they're not disincentivizing you from getting their service. It's like a guaranteed thing. I mean, if you get in a car accident, they bring you to a hospital, you don't really get to negotiate beforehand. So what is going to prevent them from deciding a price for you? That kind of deal. Because healthcare is like, I feel like it's the most
Yeah, I mean, that is a good
obviously
question.
flaw of a market economy.
You would say it's like a market failure to provide
Yeah.
for emergency services appropriately.
Yeah, I mean that's the most explicit form, I would say. Or like obviously
Yeah,
fire,
I mean,
you know,
that makes sense. Yeah, fire prevention. Well, I mean, think about that from the other side. That getting rid of the state, it doesn't only allow uh, market economies to flourish. It also allows every other form of social
true.
organization outside the state to flourish. So things we have now with not only charities but religious organizations, community organizations, neighborhood associations, and most importantly, volunteer firefighting, as you mentioned. Like we already have people who are willing to volunteer for emergency services. Like I don't see a reason why we
True.
need the state to force people into any sort of associations when people have shown themselves more than willing to help their neighbors when they need to, volunteer their time for free when it's necessary and share
I just don't
resources.
see the I don't see the argument against a non super statist version of a single payer healthcare system where it's, I mean, maybe they don't, it's more about the funding and not really the central planning, because right now it's like the healthcare industry is already controlled by private insurers. There's not a real, it's not between the doctor and their patient. And I think that's an issue. I think that's something that a single payer system would help fix. And it would, I mean, we see how much money is saved in countries that have at least a multi-payer system, just because of the ability to like regulate.
Like having a public auction.
Yeah, even a public option with like a public option that covers all the people that would need it necessarily. So not necessarily like, I don't know. I'm getting distracted because I'm thinking of how to introduce AJ because he just hopped on.
Well, let me jump in then.
Oh,
All right,
what's
jump in.
up?
So I think you guys made a Justice, you made a great point earlier, and I'm going to double back on it. So a lot of people don't realize, like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, how they were created. They were created by the food industry to regulate competition, and then they morphed into this organization that became like, oh, we're gonna make sure we protect all these industries, like creating drugs and creating this, and like we're gonna say weed is bad, but all these, fentanyl you're taking is amazing and it's good for
Yeah,
you.
that's exactly right.
And so they're like, it is kind of like, we'll tell you what's this, we'll tell you what's that. But we all have to understand that that whole entire organization was created because of the food industry and the competition that was rising at the time. Things like Heinz ketchup and those started to come pretty much when this is going to go a little bit on a healthy tip, but when processed foods came into play, they came into play, and then so they created this agency that regulated how and what was deemed healthy and what was not deemed healthy, even though it's all processed food and processed food is not good for you.
Yeah.
But they try to say, well, this processed food is good for you, but this processed food is not good for you, and then this drug is good for you, and then this drug's not good for you. So it's you have to understand that that organization is very tied to businesses, um, and a lot of people that sits on those boards are very tied into the food industry and the drug industry. So take what they say with a grain of salt. Do your own research, because as Justin was saying earlier, that's if you're allowing the government to dictate what is good and what's bad for your health, then you're in big trouble because it's very tied to money and business.
Yeah.
And so whoever has
Yeah.
the most money is what's put on the boards, and those are going to be pushing those products, even though those products can kill you in 5 years. That's not the point. The point for them to do is make money. And so I just
Yeah.
want to tell them a little history lesson there for people who doesn't know how the FDA
No,
was
thank
created.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And it also makes me think of how the food pyramid was created. That's like completely an industry thing too. And
yeah,
I think you could argue that a lot of the reason for all the obesity and problems in America is because of misinformation created by the government and the industries that run it.
exactly.
All right. I feel like now is the time. Our good friend AJ, the captain of the Pirate Party of America, he is here with us
All
tonight.
right.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Welcome,
Hey,
my friend.
am I on? And does my
You are
microphone sound
on.
good?
What's
That sounds
up?
amazing.
Hey, AJ,
Okay.
what's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to make sure my microphone sounded all right because I've had some issues with it before. But if we're good, then we're good. All right. I'm
We have
AJ.
a
Yes,
officially we have a pirate party right now,
we,
guys.
we do have a pirate party right now. I didn't know
Yar, I guess.
the limit. I didn't know it constituted a pirate party was like four
Oh,
people. But who
four
knows?
is the that's where you start, man. That's
Usually we
also
use
going
the
to be the title of the episode. We're going to title it
yeah.
Pirate Party.
Hey, I'm good with that though. I'll have to talk a lot, I guess, to make that title like
Yeah, you have to earn
meaningful.
it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
gonna
always
have
take
to
that
earn
away.
it. You can always take it away. That's true.
Mhm.
I'm AJ. I'm the chair of the United States Pirate Party. If you call it the Pirate Party of America, I think the pirates in Chile and
Oh,
Brazil
true.
would get a little upset. So we call it the United States
You're right.
Pirate Party and Canada. We've got a couple pirates in Canada. Um, Not a Canada Pirate Party right now, but they're thinking about starting it back up. Yeah, so I'm AJ. I'm chair of the United States Pirate Party. I feel like I don't think that needs any introduction to any of you here. But for the people at home, we're a little weird niche political party that is worldwide. We have elected officers in a bunch of different countries, just on either at the minor level or at the national level. In the case of Iceland and the Czech Republic, we came to fruition, in the internet age. If you're wondering why we're called the Pirate Party, not necessarily seafaring pirates, more
Damn.
civil disobedience, downloading music online pirates. But we kind of play into both. Uh, and we have a lot of values that stem from when we were created. We consider ourselves very humanist. We believe in free speech, a lot of things that sort of became more meaningful around the time of the internet. And we try to not necessarily like pin ourselves down with any other sort of label, but we're friendly a lot of the time to people who are more left leaning, people who are libertarian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And sort of what alliances we lean into kind of depends on the country that we're in and all of that sort of thing. We've been described before, I think, as like an alliance between left libertarians, radical centrists, and anarchists before. At some point, that was on our Wikipedia page, which, sure, why
I
not?
think it still is, and
Yeah,
it says progressives too.
yeah. I think
Some
maybe
radical
someone edited
liberals.
to include a couple other things. I'm going to be entirely honest with
You're
you
actually
all
on the
right now.
Wikipedia page too.
Oh yeah, I am on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with all of you right now. I'm still working on the elevator pitch. I've been chair for like a year, but I still don't have an elevator pitch down. It's it's really hard to explain, but
Yeah.
I guess the main takeaway is that I am usually very amenable to a lot of the ideas that are probably discussed on the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very big tent in the green square of the four quadrants of the political compass, I would say.
Yeah,
Is that
usually,
fair?
or we kind of bounce between the bottom two. Again, it really depends
Oh
on
yeah, I guess a
yeah,
couple center right libs can
yeah.
hang out, but
It depends on context. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd love to kind of shake being placed on the political compass, but I know that's not always necessarily too reasonable.
yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So I mean, you and Justice, you guys are essentially you're AJ the Pirate Party. Make sure I frame this correctly, but you guys are a very humanistic approach, and
Yes.
and Justice is really big on believing that us as society we can govern ourselves. We don't need actual government holding us back, which I think is kind of a humanistic approach,
Mhm.
and it's to a
Yeah,
certain degree.
I would definitely say it's a humanist approach. Like
Yeah,
human liberty is essential to human
Yeah, I don't
flourishing.
remember
So
what quote it is, but I think it sums this up for now. It was something like, um, whenever framed with the question of like, how are you going to prevent the biggest, the strongest person from establishing a new state in your anarchist society, and the response was like, well, that's essentially what happened. We already exist under we are, the natural state is anarchy, and like, the biggest, the strongest boot already took over society, and we're already living under, you know, what what happens when an anarchist society falls apart or whatever. So like the natural state of being is anarchy. You're not born to be governed.
I think we're in a reflection point right now. I think Justice was saying that earlier, how Bitcoin and now AI, um, we are moving towards a governmentless system, and I do see that. And I wonder if we're in a reflection point as where's the limits of this governmentless system. And I
I'm so
think
sorry, guys. I think I
we've
have to
been.
hop off.
Oh no, no. Well, I just want to save 5 minutes. Replug your Twitter again, because we definitely want to have you back as a guest, and I'm pretty sure everyone wants to hear your approach. And
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah,
so,
I'm
this
glad we
stream,
got you for
so
like 20
I'll be
minutes or
on next time
something.
I get a chance.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, me
All right,
too,
well,
for sure. Awesome. Thank
thanks,
you,
Justice.
guys.
I appreciate it.
All right, see you, buddy.
See ya.
See
Of
ya.
course. See you.
So, yeah, as I was saying, I mean, for us, I think
My
that
bad.
we are moving to this positionless society where we are not relying on government. We're relying on, like you were saying, AJ, the humanistic approach. Bitcoin is the best example of that. It's the most, I think, it's the biggest example of that because it's not backed by a government, um, and it's kind of backed by us and our belief system and this idea that we don't need government to regulate our money, and which is a very humanistic thing. Like, why do we need government to control what we do if we can govern ourselves?
Yeah, I will say I think that as interested as I am in the possible applications in the future of things like Bitcoin or what have you, I'm sure there are other good examples. I will say that if you ask a lot of pirates, we'll probably say that right now, I don't know if a lot of us are convinced that the technology is quite there yet. You know, there are issues and kinks to work out, and almost everything, especially when it just starts. I know a lot of pirates were obviously really excited about cryptocurrency back when it kind of became an idea years ago. Now, I think a lot of us are just kind of watching to see what happens with it, and that, I mean, it changes depending on who you talk to, and also it changes between, like, with the individual. You know, there's a friend of mine on the board. A couple months ago, if you asked them how they felt about Bitcoin, they'd say, "I don't really like it. It's not there yet." Now, if you ask them, they're going to say that they love the idea.
Yeah,
So I think that's another thing too about our approach and how we're trying to create this more humanist-minded look at, you know, some of these more kind of libertarian adjacent policies is some level of pragmatism, right, and skepticism, and watching to see what happens and thinking about what can be applied, what can be used right now, and what can be done right now to create good results. You will find that a lot of people in the Pirate Party, they, they have tendencies that are maybe a little bit more radical to a lot of people, but they are also very pragmatic about it. So it's, I guess, one of our main things is, okay, how do we take some of these ideas that are out there that we like that aren't really mainstream and figure out how to actually practically turn them into reasonable, actionable policy or suggestions for the individual person or suggestions for a community that can be done right now instead of just kind of keeping our head in the clouds, which I think is, at least personally, my biggest complaint with a lot of anarchists is sort of the inability to see, okay, that sounds great in the future, but what do we do right now to make people's lives better? And that's something we really try to focus on.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the Reform Party was, except they don't cater. You don't cater to conservatives the same way.
Yeah. Kind of. I mean, we're friends with the Reform Party in a lot of respects. We wish them really
What's left
well.
of them?
I don't know too much about the inner workings of them or what happened. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to really have your steam after Ross Perot isn't around. So
I feel like
I
Pat Robertson probably killed him, didn't he? And Donald Trump all running in 2000. Yeah, it's not a good look.
I don't know anything about that, so I
No,
can't even make funny
Donald Trump
jokes.
ran for president in the year 2000.
Wait, he did?
Yep, Google it. You know who he said his vice president was going to be?
Huh.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, that's really funny.
It was like maybe it was just an exploratory committee or something, but he
Yeah.
dropped out. Yeah, obviously.
I've never heard of that before. That's
And he
actually.
was calling Pat Robertson racist and stuff like that. Oh, it's the best.
I feel like I feel a little dumb for not knowing this. Where's this information been?
I don't know. It's on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Steph loves Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big sort of a shoot. I can't even remember. Oh yeah, with the Reform Party and things like that. I think we, on the surface level, we do kind of share a lot of DNA with a lot of more moderate movements, which can seem a little weird at first. You know, we've got friends of the Reform Party, and we're kind of friendly towards forward, and we've got some people that hop back and forth because I think that
Not so friendly towards libertarians anymore.
it depends. It depends. I've got still a lot of great people in the Libertarian Party.
I mean, the LP,
Yeah.
at least the Twitter account is not. You guys kind of beef.
Oh yeah. Sometimes. But yeah, and I think that's because when it comes to us sort of having kind of connections to moderates, at least in the U.S., I think that does have to do with our core values and sort of our approach being very similar to theirs. But at the end of the day, we find sometimes more radical results out of that approach because we're not necessarily afraid to go there. We don't want to be restricted by where we're supposed to be on the political compass or whether our ideas are more moderate or more radical. We just want to figure out, okay, what's an actionable thing we can do right now to actually improve the lives of people? And to some people, that can kind of sound like, oh yeah, of course, you're pro good things and anti bad things, isn't everybody?
Yeah.
But if you take a step back, actually, and look at it and look at politics, there are a lot of people that actually aren't stepping back and trying their best to just apply the scientific method and just kind of reason through their viewpoints and reflect and take in new information. There are a lot of people that aren't actually doing that. So it may seem silly to say, oh yes, we're pro good policy. I do still actually think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in normalizing the right way to think about politics, because whether you're a mainstream conservative or a mainstream liberal or something that's a little bit more fringe, a lot of options, there are still a lot of people that they're not. It could really reason through and reflect on their beliefs a little bit better, and that's something we really try to encourage.
It's a positive message. I mean, I think that I think overall, we're always trying. I think as American people, that's the aspirational goals is to take away all this division in terms of rhetoric that we have going on right now. But I would say not all of American people, but the majority of American people. There are factions on both sides who use this discord to stay in power.
Yeah, I feel like partisanship is at least, especially because we have a two-party system. But the partisanship is really just brings out the black and white thinking in everybody's brain. Like it's
Exactly.
like the Jungian archetypes. I don't know, something about good or evil, and like you have to fucking assign an enemy at any point, and that's kind of what fuels them. So especially like Republicans. I mean, Democrats do too, but Republicans kind of like that's their entire image is defining themselves by who they hate and who they're opposed to and everything that they dislike. And like
there's something I've never gotten about that actually, because I understand that our minds work in such a way where it's very intuitive to have an enemy. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we can almost channel that for good if we actually put our minds to it. Like the enemy doesn't
agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, sure, maybe it's reasonable for your enemy to be, fascism or something.
Yeah.
But I really don't think the enemy has to be a political opponent. Imagine if you could channel a lot of people, and get them to agree with this idea that the enemy, the existential enemy that we have to fight is poverty. It is climate change. It is this or that or etc.
Or so, it could even be like more inherent to somebody's being, like not even like systemic problems. It could be just like selfishness or I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, hate, something like
Yeah,
that. Like the very thing that causes every single issue, like right at the root, which
yeah,
is
no,
kind of like
absolutely.
the Marianne Williamson style of politics, where it's like, yeah,
Speaking
we're
of
all
Mary
people, we're all
Wilson, how's
trying to.
she doing?
What was that?
How's she doing?
Not great. I mean, she kind of is growing at the same time, but like Biden is literally they're not gonna they're not gonna welcome any challengers.
Mhm.
And honestly, RFK is probably taking more support away from the anti-Biden coalition, anyways, which is mostly just independents that hate Biden.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just thought I'd chime that in, Joe.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's it.
there's no chance for anything interesting to happen DNC wise leading
yeah.
up to 2024. And I honestly didn't think there would be. I wasn't holding my breath,
Mhm.
but
I thought it'd be interesting if they even had a debate. You
yeah,
know,
it
it'd at least be interesting. Not like something would challenge him truly, but at least I feel like he could be pressured by the progressive message and like all of the things he didn't do during the first 4 years of his presidency. I wish he could at least, and just to hear him talk. Ugh, they're not doing a debate for a very very clear reason, and they like he
Well,
can
yeah.
barely.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah,
yeah,
they it would not look well, and it would also I think it makes sense from their perspective too, because if they did do that, he would win anyways, okay? But he would just look so much worse being on the national stage like that against somebody that's actually wildly more intelligent, Marion Williamson, and he would just be baffling around, and it would make him look so much older and weaker against Trump or DeSantis. So I don't know. I can see both sides to it because obviously all things fall aside when it comes to just defeating the Republican Party for this this next election cycle because that would be just horrible.
yeah. I mean, there's no reasonable incentive for the DNC to do anything out of the ordinary, and nothing that
Yeah,
that anyone would ever, you know, not. They're playing it by the book. They have a candidate that's already in office, but it's really unheard of to shake
yeah.
that up at all. But I
I
just,
mean, it happened in like 1980, I think, with the
yeah,
Republican Party. There was Gerald Ford was he was the incumbent, and I think Ronald Reagan. And if Ronald Reagan couldn't beat him and primary him, then like
Yeah,
good luck,
it's
because
extremely hard.
he won the next what 4 years later.
yeah.
Yeah, he won
Yeah,
anyways. So,
it's
but
really hard to
still,
find it.
It
was that?
would have been really interesting. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, no, go ahead.
I said it would have been really interesting to see something like that, and it would have been, I think, just objectively, just generally good for democracy.
Yeah,
Um,
Hmm.
but I didn't expect it to happen, and I understand why. I don't know, it would have been. I think it would have been helpful in some way. Even
yeah.
it,
It's
I
just a
mean,
bad look.
obviously, any improvement, any even possibility of an improvement is helpful. But
Yeah.
I think even for the, if we're just thinking about the DNC's interests as as a political organization, I think it would have been helpful for them in
Yeah,
some way.
but it's also like I said, it's just a bad look for them too because they're also facing Republican criticism. It's like the main pushback amongst Republicans that they think the election was rigged, and now
Yeah,
they're rigging the primary, like openly. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even
that
having
doesn't
a
help,
primary.
does it? Yeah,
That's the issue for me. It's like you're really just going to play into all their fears, which
yeah,
is
but
not helpful.
at the end of the day, it's we know it's going to be Trump and Biden again, and
Well, we
it's going to
don't
be
because still a lot of time, and I'm not going to lie, he's not looking great.
who's going to beat him.
Oh, I don't say beat him. He doesn't. He's not. He could always drop out at the last minute if his health is legitimately like. I don't know, but if he's really not going to do any like public debates or something like that, I don't know. I could see a last second situation like with Dianne Feinstein where they're like, okay, we can't really hide it anymore. He's not well, and like I don't know. I could see them sliding Gavin Newsom
If
in
they're
there.
hiding it, they're doing a terrible job of hiding it. To be
Well, maybe,
honest, that
yeah.
one.
I mean, it's difficult to hide the president of the United States from the public, but they're
Yeah.
clearly trying.
At the end of the day, everyone knows that Biden's um,
Deteriorating.
whatever word you want to use. I think the reality is they just don't want Trump. So if
Yeah.
the Republicans elect Trump, they're just going to go for Biden again. And that's his call to grace. But if the Republicans vote anyone else besides Trump, Biden will. I I don't want him to lose, but I think he would lose against anyone
I
else.
think so. I won't say anybody, but I mean, I definitely Nikki Haley, if she's somehow won, she's just like not objectionable. Like people don't hate her. Even the Democrats aren't are like whatever. It's Nikki Haley and
And that's the
Tim
scary part.
Scott. I don't know.
So on the GOP side, I mean, are we still humoring DeSantis? Because I was really worried about him, but it feels like
I don't think
you
he's
know,
gonna run.
I'm in the battle between him and Trump, though. I mean, it kind of feels like Trump's kind of got him beat.
Yeah, I
So
think DeSantis is too smart to run now because he is losing the public image battle, but he is still considered the successor, and he's young, so he's just gonna wait it out. That's what I think. I don't
that's
think he's
fair.
gonna run at all.
I thought he was going to run, and then I see him losing terrible to Disney. And you don't want to start
Yeah,
an election like that.
yeah, he's got to recover his image if he wants to do that.
Yeah, it'd be like, yeah, I lost to the mouse, but I want to be president of the United States.
I'm
It's like,
most concerned about the fact that Biden won't be replacing Kamala Harris, and he'll probably be reelected. And if he makes it through 4 years, maybe we'll be fine. But like, the Democratic Party would be so screwed over if she was the nominee. They're literally hiding her more than they're hiding Biden.
well,
That's
I just don't think they're both. It's weird because I
they
think
just don't. They're just not in touch. Neither of them.
it's not necessarily. Yeah, well, yes, that's a very big thing. They're not in touch. I just think they don't have the. They don't really have a base of
No,
supporters.
it's
Uh,
just like anti. It's just people. We're all united over what we hate, which is what I'm trying to say we shouldn't do.
yeah, we're a night over Trump, and I think that's why they got elected. But now the Trump effect is wearing off, and now it's like, are they really inspiring people?
Mm-mm.
And they're neither one of them are inspiring. Like even Bernie Sanders is more inspiring than either one of them.
Bernie
It's
Sanders is
like
one of the most inspiring politicians in the country. Like,
exactly. And
yeah,
people when they look at President of the United States, they want to be inspired to, whatever kind of inspiration they get, they still want to be inspired. And if they don't have no sense of, you know, inspiration from the presidency, it doesn't bode well for the presidency because the presidency is a symbol. It stands for something. And I just don't think the American people want a symbol where it's like an 80-year-old man is running for president of the United States
yeah.
and he can't even get through a speech.
I mean, I
That's
think he's
tough.
still a better representation of the country than Trump, but for our
He
party,
is.
he represents everything the opposition is going to fight against. So
He
you have
is.
somebody like Obama, you literally have to just make up shit. Like he's Muslim, he's from Kenya, he's a communist. You literally can't even use the things that his actual qualities, and that's part of the reason why it was so hard for them to challenge him, even with
Mhm.
like good candidate, somebody like Mitt Romney, that's like very likable to a lot of people. Like you just don't have enough attacks against him. And
And
yeah,
that's why I said if it's not Trump, I see us Democrats having a very hard time if it's not against any one of the Republicans split up because it wasn't like the Biden was elected because of aspiration. He was elected because
out of
we didn't like
desperation.
that guy. Desperation. There you go. Perfect word.
that being
And
said, I
now,
do think. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I cut
no,
you
go
off.
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I was finishing up. Yeah.
That being said, though, I do think that I actually, and my memory of the primaries is fuzzy, but I do remember there being a strangely high amount of people that were actually really enthusiastic for Biden, and I don't actually know if I
I
didn't
don't know if
see.
that's true.
You don't think that's
It
true?
was after, as soon as the big three candidates or whatever dropped out. Like as soon as Pete and they all endorsed him, everybody fell in line. But everybody, there was nothing but attacks against Biden from like everybody. He was the focal candidate. Everybody was attacking him, and everybody was in their own camps. Pete camp, Elizabeth Warren's camp. He didn't. He had like support with establishment and like black candidates, stuff like that. But he wasn't. I mean, even Iowa, New Hampshire, he was like third, fourth, fifth.
Well, but I mean, there was a Pete camp, there was a Bernie camp, there was a Warren camp,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but anyone outside of that, I mean, I can't even really recall. Was there really even much of a Harris camp?
No,
No,
Yeah, that's what I'm
no,
saying.
no.
There really wasn't such a thing.
no,
So I feel
not
like
not with Harris. She dropped out before Iowa. She
Yeah.
had she at one point was at like 15%. She dropped to like 2%, and then she's just like, okay, no, maybe not. I remember Pete's camp having a lot of energy. Warren's camp had a lot of energy. Even Michael Bloomberg at one point had a lot of energy, which was really irritating for me because I was like, he's actually going to do it, isn't he? Oh, that
No.
would have been so awful. But no, yeah, even I don't think there was that much. Like Biden had supporters, but he did not have enthusiasm. Even then, they would show like his rallies, and it would be like 12 dudes, and they're all sitting at a different table, and it was rough.
But
But
my
That,
point being, I think that out of everybody, even if the enthusiasm for Biden was a little rough,
yeah,
I do think that he probably still came in third or fourth for enthusiasm.
yeah,
Maybe that
yeah,
just speaks to the fact that a lot of the other candidates just weren't very good either. But
or it's
I don't
just so
know.
split because it was split
Yeah,
30 ways that you're just going to get establishment
yeah.
support at one. He just had that bias, or not bias, that privilege, I guess.
Yeah, because people knew him. They knew, oh, that Obama's VP. I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll be a great, establishment pick to watch. I don't know. I guess my point is that it's not like he had a huge base or anything, but I mean, compared to anyone really actually looking to replace him, I mean, I don't, especially now that he's the president.
yeah. I don't think that it's clear who would replace him in like a regular situation.
But I also
Although I
don't think
don't
there's
think
anyone
that
really raring to go for anybody. Like I don't think there's like a huge, contingent of people who are like, yeah, Pete needs to replace him, or I mean, Bernie already,
definitely not him. I think
it's
that people have given up on Pete.
Pete's also kind of an establishment type pick, so
Yeah.
he'll probably get his time in the limelight at some point.
I'm convinced it's gonna be Gavin Newsom is gonna be the next one.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Steph. I think Gavin Newsom's probably going to be the next president.
I
I
don't. Yeah, I do think Biden's gonna make it, and I don't think it's gonna end up being Kamala Harris. And I think she'll run, but I don't think she'll win
Yeah,
because I don't know. It will be
but
split.
here's the thing: if Biden wins, then they're definitely going to be Republican, and
I don't know.
this is more
Yeah, no,
history
you're
than
right.
anything. Yeah, we've never ever had a third. There's only been one time in history we've ever had a three-term party, and that was during FDR's reign. And then when he died, that died. So there's never
So unless
been.
they had like a really, really anti-establishment Democrat run, they're not gonna have a third establishment Democrat in a
Yeah,
row.
they're just not going to do that.
No, I don't think
I
so.
think we tend to swing as a country both
Mhm.
directions.
And
But
we're so anti-authoritarian that you can't go 15 years with one party being in charge and not have a lot of people switch. That's
Yeah,
what I
of
think.
course not. Yeah, it's only can be
I do wonder though if that rule is
two.
going to be broken, because you're seeing this increased polarization. You're seeing, you know, Gen Z voters kind of keep a red wave at bay in the 2022 election. A lot of really interesting
Yeah,
things that are unexpected. So, like, is that gonna? I guess my question is that going to happen anymore, or
I
is
do
everyone
think the
else pretty much
establishment
set?
is going to die.
And the establishment's going to die, but what happens after that?
We're going to have a new establishment, and we'll probably start fighting with them too. But they're going to be slightly more progressive. They're going to be like instead of Obama and Biden, they'll be more like Amy Klobuchar, like
Oh
just
boy, oh boy, the
like a little bit farther left, and then we're like.
progressive queen, Amy Klobuchar.
And
I
then
can't wait. Yeah.
where they'll be like actually serious about like protecting unions and increasing minimum wage and stuff like that. But that's as far as they'll go. Like that's what's going to happen. Like right now they'll pander and they'll talk about minor progressive changes and they'll do nothing. But then I'll think they'll actually achieve them. But it's still only going to be like center left minor reforms. I don't think we're going to get a visionary candidate for like 10 years at least. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like 10 years from now.
I mean,
Um,
it depends. I think it all depends on the conservative base, and it seems like they may be factioning, which I didn't think was going to be possible. I mean, we see what's happening with the Daily Wire and like the conserv and like Steven Crowder stuff like that, which I'm leading into this on purpose because
yeah.
Jesse's not seen the video, the
Oh
Steven Crowder
boy.
video, and I have it
Yes.
pulled up. Do you want to watch the 3-minute video? You ready, AJ? Have you?
I've
Right.
already seen it, but oh boy. All
Yeah,
right,
I'm
let's
ready.
go.
All right.